Hi, everybody. It's Matt from Discover College Soccer. I hope you're enjoying the podcast, whether that's on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I also wanted to let you know about the Discover College Soccer Study Table. This is our brand new online portal that is complete with a 14-part online course giving you all of the ins and outs of the college soccer recruiting process. There's also a wealth of resources such as checklists, templates. There's the spreadsheets that have every soccer program in the country, along with their coaches, their contact information, their social media information, some basic stats about the school, and more. Plus, there's an online community where you can ask your questions, share your wins, your losses, any questions that you may have around the college soccer recruiting process. It's all there at the Discover College Soccer study table that you can find at discovercollegesoccer.com/study table, and hopefully we will see you there. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Nano from Bates College up in Maine. Welcome, Coach.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
Thanks for being here. Yeah, you know, one of those very high academic NESCAC schools up in the Northeast, which I know a lot of people are interested in. Um, so, we're here in January. It's kind of the start of recruiting season, really, now that the season's wrapped up. So for you guys, because I know kind of those NESCAC schools are maybe a little bit different than most Division threes.
Mhm.
How far along are you right now in the class of 24? How much are you looking at the class of 25? Kind of what's your calendar generally look like?
Yeah, I think you're right that the year has different phases, right? And we kind of entered this new phase of recruiting right now. So we just finished our 2024 class. Our application deadline was January 10th. So we only can consider people who have applied by that deadline. We don't have any ability to get kids in after that. So they would have had to apply already for 2024. And I think it varies year by year exactly when we kind of finish our class or start the next class, depending on how things go. But for 2025, we're just kind of starting up the class now. Of course, we have tabs on some of the top 2025s that we've been able to see in last spring and summer, and kids that we've seen in camps and things like that who have come on our radar through different avenues. But we're just kind of getting started more seriously on 2025s.
So let's just say I'm a 2026 or 7, somebody a little bit farther
Sure.
out. They're not in the meat of it right now. For trying to get recruited by those top academic schools like Bates and others, like when do you think they should get started with the process of reaching out, and how best to get started in that process?
Yeah, I always tell kids I don't think it's ever too early to start. Just to get your name out there and get to know some coaches and start learning about the process. It never hurts to do something too early. I would say the best way to go about it is probably to send an email and include as much information as possible. A highlight video if you can, basic information, graduation year, all that kind of stuff, club team, high school, GPA, all that kind of stuff is important. And then the other way to get the process started is to sign up for things like ID camps, because then you get exposure to coaches, but you also start that process of like interacting with coaches and interacting with other players who are going through the process. I think a lot of players would learn a lot from older players who are going through the process. A kid who's 1 or 2 years older who kind of already is talking to some schools, and just those little stories that they might have might help a kid learn a lot about the process. And then, like I said, if it's a kid who's 2026, that's a way to get on our radar so that next year when we really start recruiting hard in the 2026, we've already got a couple kids on our radar who are top of the list.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I kind of say the same things to folks.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of this spring, I'm assuming you're going to be going to different recruiting events. When you look at your roster, it's it's not regional like a lot of Division threes tend to be. You got folks from all over the country and internationally as well. So what are some of the top events that you guys make sure are on your hit list each year that you like to go to watch players?
Yeah, so we typically try to target MLS Next and ECNL events. Um, there's kind of a guarantee that those levels are going to be pretty high level soccer. And so from those events, we can try to pick out the kids that might be a good fit for us academically, culturally, right? What they're depending on what they're looking for. And always, of course, the kids who have reached out to us prior to the tournament are the ones that we're going to be watching for, right? If we know that a kid is genuinely interested in us, then we're going to spend a lot more time and effort watching those kids, because the chances of getting that kid to come to Bates is so much higher than trying to find a kid randomly on a field, right? That we never know what that kid might have in mind for what they want in terms of their college experience. So if we know that they're interested in Bates, then it's already kind of we're a step in the right direction. Um, and sorry, there was another part to your question, I think that I might have missed.
No, it was just curious as to where you go and look at players. And I know you mentioned camps earlier. Do you guys run your own, or do you guys work kind of those multi-school camps, or what does that look like for you specifically?
Yeah, yeah. So this year we're gonna co-host a camp called Elite 300 at Swarthmore College. We worked the camp last year, both sessions of the camp. The sessions are back to back, and so we worked it last year and had a great time and got a couple of recruits actually from that camp, and so we've aligned ourselves with that camp again this year. I think the goal is to eventually have our own camp as well. But for now, just piggybacking on some of those existing camps that already have a good traction amongst those high academic kids. And I remember actually what I was going to say, adding on to that previous question about where do we go recruit? So MLS Next, ECNL events, those are the primary events. But we know that there are kids outside of those leagues who are still quality players who could fit in at Bates. So those, of course, those are the ones that we target because we know that there's a guarantee of a level, a quality of soccer that we want to see. That being said, I think ID camps are a great place for those kids who are not in those leagues to be seen. You know, from Bates, we're all the way up in Maine, so we have to travel pretty far for any tournament that we go recruit. So it's tough for us to get to a tournament every weekend. We're going to pick and choose very, very carefully which tournaments we attend. So MLS Next and ECNL just make the most sense for us. But then anyone from other leagues, I think, could be seen through those camps. That's I think the best way.
Okay. Well, and I noticed, like I said, there are a few international players on your roster, and the transfer portal is getting kind of big these days in terms of player movement. So how does international recruiting and the transfer portal fit into your overall recruiting profile?
Yeah, we do have quite a few internationals, and I think yeah, that might be through a few different avenues. But one of them is through boarding schools. So that's another place that we recruit. That's big in the Northeast. And so we've gotten a few international kids from boarding schools. And then also from agents and handling companies, especially through COVID when it was hard to go see games in person. We relied on some video and things like that. I didn't personally have anything to do with those classes that were recruited during the pandemic, but I think that's one of the reasons why we have some of those international kids. For internationals at Bates, it can be tricky because financial aid is rare for international students, and so when you look at our roster and you see a few kids who grew up in another country, a lot of times they have one parent that's American, and so they have American citizenship, which allows them to apply for financial aid, which is really important for us. So that's one thing that really helps to get some of the international kids. And then lastly, prior to Bates, I I worked for a recruiting company called Tiro Sports, which helped international kids get to U.S. colleges. And so that's been one point of connection for international students for us. And hopefully, we love bringing in kids from different backgrounds. They add so much to the culture of our squad, and their perspectives on soccer are different because they grew up in a whole different system. And so we love having those kids on our team. So we hope we can continue that pipeline of international kids.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the school. I'm sure there's some folks out there not familiar with Bates up there in Maine. You've been
Yeah.
there a couple years now, so kind of what are some of the things you found to be, unique, awesome about the school? Maybe some things we wouldn't even know by going through the website.
Yeah, I think one of the special things about Bates is the tight knit community and the culture of people wanting to really help each other. I think sometimes when you get to the high academic environment, you get a competitiveness and a culture that I would call sort of a cutthroat culture where people are trying to get ahead of each other all the time. And what I really enjoy at Bates is that when people are trying to succeed, they're not trying to take others down in that process. They're trying to help other people. They're trying to empower other people. And that trickles down, it permeates through the entire culture. It's not just the student body, it's like the staff. When I first moved to Bates, I was looking for an apartment, but I wasn't in town. And one of the other coaches actually went and checked out an apartment for me. And that's the kind of culture that, people just want to be helpful, and they want to build a community that's strong. And I think that's one of the big strengths of Bates.
Cool. Well, obviously being a high academic institution, that pull between being a student and being an athlete can be pretty difficult. So how do your players specifically kind of balance the commitments of the sport and in the classroom, and what kind of support systems does a school offer to kind of help make sure they succeed on both sides of the fence?
Yeah, it's always a tough time during the season, right? Because our schedule is pretty demanding. We're practicing almost every day. We've got about 2 games a week, and so the season can get pretty intense in terms of a time commitment. What we find though is that the kids who are athletes do really well when they're in season because they're forced to be a little bit more organized. And so our team GPA is typically higher in season than it is out of season. And so, yeah, I think that says a lot about the type of kid that we get as well, right? That they're motivated to really get their stuff done when they need to. In terms of resources, we have a couple different resources that are nestled in the library. So we have, yeah, different tutoring and academic support and a writing center and things like that. That students can go to in the library, and the library is pretty central on campus, so it's pretty easy to get to from anywhere. And then the last thing that I'll say that I think is special about our team is that a lot of guys will take classes together or seek help from a junior, a senior who's already taken the class before. And so there have been times when we're on a long bus ride, and I sit in the front of the bus, and as I walk back through the back of the bus, I see like little groups of 2 or 3 players working on an assignment together. And when we go off on away trips, we try to devote a little bit of time, 2, 3 hour pockets in at the hotel where they have the time to work on assignments if things are getting tough and they need that time. We need to make sure that they have that time, because sometimes when we travel, right, we're gone for pretty much the whole weekend. And so it's important that they prioritize schoolwork as well.
Well, and let's talk about that schedule. You kind of mentioned it a little bit, but let's rewind, pretend we're in, October, heart of the season. Kind of walk me through just an outline of what a normal week might look like. When are classes, practices, game cadence? What does all that look like?
Sure. So I would say our weeks are typically structured in one of 2 ways. Sometimes we have league weekends where we have 2 games back to back. So we'll play Saturday, Sunday, And the goal there is to minimize missing school, right? Some colleges, they travel a lot, during the week or whatever, and they might miss some classes. And so having games Saturday, Sunday allows us to travel on Friday evening, and not miss much class there, and then travel back on Sunday. It's pretty brutal to play games back to back, so we rely on a depth of roster that can sustain, 2 long games over the weekend. And so that's one type of week that we might have. The other type is when we have non-league games, we might schedule them midweek. And we also have a couple league games, our closer opponents, that are midweek as well. And so what that might look like is like a Tuesday, Saturday, or a Wednesday, Saturday type of deal. And so, depending on the week, whether it's the 2 games back to back, or whether they're split up in the week, we're going to train accordingly to make sure that guys are fit and fresh for the game. So, we're mandated 1 day off every week. So if we play Saturday, Sunday, we'll take Monday off, and then we'll start training again Tuesday. And then we'll, work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday leading into the game. And then nestled in there will also be 1 or 2 lifts that might be organized as a team lift where we all go together. They might also be organized as like players can go in small groups whenever is convenient for them based on their class schedule. And then we'll try to throw in a video session in there as well. And with the video sessions, we really don't want to take up the players' time because we know how busy they are, like we've talked about already. So we try to be really efficient with everything and try to get them in and out in 30 or 40 minutes and just put together the important highlights. Maybe it's, hey, we did this well. We show 2 or 3 clips. Hey, we need work on this. We show a couple clips, and then maybe a little snippet of what the opponent might be showing us. So that's kind of how we structure our weeks.
Okay. Well, let's talk more about the team. I mean, you mentioned having a deep roster. Is there a roster size that you guys find is ideal that you're trying to hit each year?
I would say we kind of stick around 30. And it really depends on the year. When I first came in, we started off with 35 on the roster, and trimmed that down to just over 30. I think we had 31 during the season, and then this past year we had 28. So somewhere around 30. And it just really depends on the year and the recruiting class, right? Some recruiting classes are bigger than others, and so that might determine what our squad size looks like.
Okay. And what about the staff, whether that's coaching staff, support staff, who all's there to help the team?
Yeah, we have a pretty small staff. We have a head coach, assistant coach, and a goalkeeper coach. And so the head coach and assistant coach are full time during season, and then the goalkeeper coach will come in and help for a couple sessions out of the week. And in the past, we've had the goalkeeper coach working with both men's and women's teams, and so we try to work the schedule so that the goalkeepers are getting lots of reps as well.
Okay. Well, how would you describe style of coaching, team style of play, what you guys are trying to implement there?
Sure, sure. I should also add from the last question that we have a full-time strength and conditioning coach that helps us in primarily in the off season. He writes up programming during the season, but during the season, it's the players will lead a lot of that stuff. But he is on staff as well. And so to answer your next question about was it playing style or coaching style?
Well, I would say a little bit of both, right? How would you
Sure.
describe kind of the coaching style that you guys use? And then, I'm not saying you don't have to tell me your formation and tactics here, but just what a player might be interested to hear about how you like to play and how you guys coach it up.
Sure. Yeah. I think something that's really important to mention in our situation is we are in the NESCAC, which is one of the, if not the best conference in Division III men's soccer. And so we're going up against tough competition. In the past several years, we've had a team in the finals of the NCAA tournament almost every year, sometimes 2 teams from our conference facing each other. And so what that means is we have, 5 or 6 teams in our conference that are going to be top contenders. And so when you're playing against top competition like that, you can't expect to dominate the game or have the ball for the majority of the game every time. And so one thing that I make sure to tell recruits is that, hey, of course we want to have the ball. We want to keep possession. We want to move it. We want to play an attacking style of football when we can, but it's not always possible. So when we have to defend, you have to be comfortable defending as well. And we want guys who are actually enjoy defending, who want to be getting the ball back and looking to counter quickly and things like that. So that's what I'll say about our playing style is that, of course, there's an ideal way that we want to play. But we also have to join that with what the reality of our situation is. And listen, I love playing at the top level of Division III. Like I wouldn't have it any other way. I want to play against the best teams, even if that means we struggle and we suffer a little bit. When we're under pressure. I think that's part of the experience. In terms of coaching style, one thing that I think has been a priority for us is the culture of the team, and we want to make sure that we're breeding a positive culture and making sure that the guys are getting along with each other, and so we really want to make sure we're doing lots of team building activities and having the guys smiling and enjoying themselves. Because if they're not having fun in training, then that's a really big problem, right? Like we have many more training sessions than we do games. So if we're training 4 or 5 times a week and then we're playing 1 or 2 games a week, we want to make sure that those 4 or 5 training days are enjoyable and guys are smiling and having fun. And if that's the case, then we're going to get the most out of the guys on the weekend as well.
I couldn't agree more. Well, Coach, you've been generous with your time. I got one last question for you, and that is, if you had one piece of advice, one nugget of information that you would hope that every player, parent, family going through the college recruiting process would know, what would that be?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that exposure is really important, and getting yourself out there, not just on the field, but presenting yourself as a person is really important. And so making the effort to visit campus and meet coaches in person, I think goes such a long way. When I'm recruiting, of course, I'm recruiting top soccer players, but also I'm recruiting the person, right? If I'm making a commitment to bring this kid to Bates, the rate of transferring to and from Bates is very low. So we hope that we're getting a kid for 4 years. And so if I'm making a commitment to take a kid for 4 years, I want to make sure that it's someone that I'm gonna enjoy spending time with for 4 years. And that their personality is going to contribute positively to our environment for 4 years. And the best way for me to find that out is to meet the person in person and even their parents, right? Like having those interactions, seeing how a kid interacts with his own parents is really important. So if they come visit campus and we have an hour to show them around campus and see our facilities, and then we have a more genuine interaction. I think one that is a lot more informative for me than an interaction that's over the phone, right? Or an email. Those sorts of interactions, I think, are the first step to getting recruited, but I think they're not the most important. The most important are the ones that you interact with someone face to face. And another good place to do that, not just visiting campus, but also at ID camps. It's a great way to just interact and interface with people, to get to know their personality a little bit better. So that would be my advice is if I were a student athlete today, I would make sure to get in front of coaches face to face and speak with them and interact with them in those ways.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Coach, I appreciate it. Wish you the best of luck in your recruiting and the upcoming fall season. And if you
Yeah.
get down to the ECNL boys event in Lakewood Ranch, Florida, give me a shout and we can meet up for some coffee or something. All right.
Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good one.
The Discover College Soccer podcast is sponsored by VIO. VIO is the #1 AI camera solution helping players capture college recruitment videos. Check out their new starter and family options by clicking on the link in the description or visit Discover College Soccer to learn more.